Excellent. All right, we have a really juicy conversation for everyone today. Kelly Day is with us for our Sister Science podcast. And Kelly is a wildlife biologist. She's a yoga teacher and a circle facilitator. She's the mom of two young girls and a resident of Bragg Creek. And Kelly and I met probably beside each other in alchemy yoga, probably. Yeah.
Mm.
So, Kelly, I want to ask you to kick us off today, answering the question, how did yoga find you?
Yeah, so I was in my early 20s and kind of just finished university, totally unaware of myself and working hard in a really challenging career for me. I don't like to, I mean, soul crushing, I guess you could say. It was a really masculine dominated industry where I was constantly just in survival mode, always feeling hurt. And yeah, and I remember my first group yoga class. Luckily, it was with an amazing teacher with Tracy Mann at the Yoga Passage. And I
Mhm.
just remember like I knew nothing. I had that whole beginner's experience going on. I didn't know how to do a down dog. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew, wow, what is this? And it right from the beginning, it was more than a physical practice for me. But I went thinking it was just a physical practice. I had
Yeah.
no idea about the other elements of yoga, you know.
Yeah.
So with my job, I would work really long field shifts, like 1 to 2 weeks, and then be back, sit in front of the computer. So my body was hurting. And, I had inklings of what yoga was, but I really had no idea until that day. And I remember looking at Tracy as he walked around the room with his eyes closed. And I was just in awe of him and his energy. And I was like, whoa, like that guy is on a different dimension. So yeah, right from the get-go, yoga drew me in. I felt calm. I could hear my breath. Uh, and I didn't know much back then about it, but I knew it. I knew I was hooked.
Yeah. So you eventually became a yoga teacher and now a circle facilitator. So what was I don't know if it was a tipping point or a louder invitation or a nudge, like what took you from those first experiences on the mat to where you are now?
Yeah, I think my youngest daughter was 5 at the time when I saw the posting for Fireweed yoga teacher training. And I knew that like this at the time I was living in Cochrane, and I knew I had to be close to home and never really thought I could commit that time to a yoga teacher training. But when I saw it was at Alchemy, my home studio, I thought, oh, I could do that. And I never once had the intention of becoming a yoga teacher. Never once.
Mm.
I just wanted to learn more about yoga. And I remember calling you. I remember the conversation. I think I was hiding in the laundry room because my kids were being really loud. And I think I said, like, is this right for me? And yep, it was. So I signed up and it was the best thing I ever did.
Wow. I do remember one of the conversations we had, and it was probably after teacher training, and you said to me something like, I'm just not living in constant overwhelm anymore. So how does yoga, I guess, shift you out of that state?
Yeah, I mean, I was in a state of overwhelm that I knew I was in, but almost didn't know the extent of it until I started practicing more yoga and doing my yoga teacher training and learning the different limbs of yoga. And I, as a young mom, I gave everything to my kids, but you know, I wasn't giving from a full cup. So we can only be a version of ourselves based on what we're giving back to ourselves. And yeah, I was so overwhelmed with the role of motherhood, the role of wife, the role of homemaker. And I grew up with my mom at home with a perfect house. And and so I'm trying to keep up with that standard, and it was hard. So I just remember finally it just kind of clicked, like I don't have to live like this. It's a choice. And whether or not I have piles of laundry sitting there, or, it's dusty or whatever, like we're going to eat toast tonight for supper. Um, and some days I'm better at that than others. Like I still catch myself in those old patterns, but yoga has allowed me to stop and realize my patterns and be like, oh, there I go again. I have a
Mm.
choice here. I have a choice. I can stop. I can go outside for a walk for half an hour. I can fill up my bucket and then come back and do these things from a place that's more joyful. And now I'm finding that more often, even with, because let's face it, it's just a really busy time. And I can't just like go off for days and do that. I come back and I feel like I'm even more overwhelmed because
Mm.
there's more piles of laundry and but when I'm doing the tasks now, even at home, I can be in that state of mind that's more flow or just enjoyment in those tasks that used to be just mundane.
So I just want to clarify right now because for a lot of people listening, perhaps to the podcast, they might be defining yoga as movements on a mat. And yes, that's a piece of what yoga is. But the way you're talking right now, it's almost like you're saying things like, I have a I notice that I have a choice. So it sounds like you're more talking about your awareness as to your approach to life, your what you choose to notice and focus on. Like how I guess how are you defining yoga right now? Because it sounds like it's more than movement on a mat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that awareness of self. It's
Okay.
it's the moving meditation off the mat. So
Nice.
I can have my mind in more of a state of meditation when I'm doing dishes or uh, taking my kids in the car somewhere or whatever. I yoga, you start with the physical practice, most of us, and then you're able to take the tools off the mat. And there's days where I don't get on my mat. Like it's not often, but there are days. And
Mhm.
on those days, I make it a point to put myself in that state of mind off my mat when I'm doing other things around the house or with the kids or walks. I just drop into that. It's almost like you pretend you're on your mat and
Mm,
you can quiet your mind.
right.
Single pointed focus, these things that we learn on our mat, I don't think they were designed to just stay on our mat. They're designed to help us live a more easeful life.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. Now, Fireweed Yoga teacher training wasn't designed to crank out like a specific type of teacher. It was designed more to allow each person to tap into how yoga exists in their being. I think we learned really fast in Fireweed Yoga teacher training that every person has dharma, purpose, and yoga can be sort of a vehicle of bringing that purpose into the world. And whatever type of yoga people started living, delivering, offering in service of, it seemed to be that yoga was not only the medicine for that they were giving to the world, but it was their own medicine. So some people ended up teaching like a Hot 26 class, and other people became sort of meditators, and other people became yin yoga teachers, and some people sing in their yoga classes. And you became a circle facilitator. So tell me about that Dharma for you.
Yeah, in fireweed yoga teacher training, I came out of there with this awareness that my dharma is three words: peace, love, and light. Uh, on the Enneagram, I'm a number 9 peacemaker. I just want to bring love and light to the world. And I was given the opportunity. I actually went to a tarot reading workshop where I was given the opportunity to the facilitator, she afterwards she said, I think Kelly should be leading circles. And I didn't really know what circles were. I was like, oh, I need to go research this and look this up. And that's just my nature. I'm just like a forever learner and I'm always ambitious to try new things. And so I start looking into what is women's circle. And as soon as I start reading about it, I was blown away. I It's this ancient practice that women have been doing for thousands of years, but it was lost. It's been lost along the way through, our society, our patriarchy, organized religion, all sorts of things. And it's a place for women to come honor this divine feminine energy that's within all of us and be a collective community of sisters where we hold and we hold space, we allow our emotions to be what they are. That for me was mind blowing. Like, I think most of us were raised in families where, not maybe not most of us, but for me and a lot of people, it was tough times, and we had to just be tough, and our parents had to be tough, and we weren't really allowed to voice our emotions or give space to them. And when I felt that energy for the first time, what it feels like to go around a circle and share uninterrupted with this guideline that there's no interrupting, there's no advice given. It's simply, how are you doing? Or maybe there's a question that we're exploring. And the growth that has happened through that circle experience, well, since I've been leading them, I can't even describe it. So I just feel lucky to be hosting them and being a part of them. There's no hierarchy. We're all equal. And it's something that I hope every woman gets to be a part of. And for some women, it's scary. It's really scary to be vulnerable. And it still is for me. I'm still working on that piece.
It's
But
fun.
sorry.
No, yeah, I was gonna say a couple of things you said there. Like you go around the circle and there's no interrupting, there's no advice giving. And I think about how our world is, we're always seeking like someone else's expertise. We're always looking outside of ourselves for someone else's wisdom, for I don't even know. Like, I think some of the things I hear talked about, like evidence-based or a percentages given and assigned to things. And what you're talking about is almost like allowing each woman to bring her own wisdom and trust it.
Yes. Yes, and like we honor the seasons, we honor nature, we honor moon cycles. As soon as you sit in circle and you have this sacred altar, it's a prayer. It's based around prayer and like dropping into, yeah, our wisdom, and we all have it. It's in our bodies. The thing I love so much about circle is and how it relates to yoga is we meditate or we chant or we do breath work. We do some sort of a activity at the beginning to drop us into our ourselves, our wisdom, our body without the noise. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, the messages are coming. I know I know what I'm supposed to be doing, or we call in our ancestors, our angels and our guides, and it's just incredible. I can't speak enough about it.
So, as the facilitator, then your job is, it sounds like to just create a container. And that container then You don't necessarily get to control all of the energy that comes to fill the container or the specifics for each participant, but you hold the container and this and the structure and safety of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have so much fun creating our themes and the altar that we get to sit around, which has, elements that usually reflect nature and this like fire, water, earth, air. And then we we get to just um yeah, the container would be, it's interesting because I usually intuitively come to whatever we're going to be focusing on, like whether it's a theme on around the moon or nature or um, a certain aspect of our lives. And I can't really, like you say, I can't control what that circle is going to feel like or what the energy is going to feel like. But you kind of, that's the beauty of it, because you don't know what the divine feminine's gonna is gonna bring for that circle. But there's some circles where we end with a dance party, and there's other circles where it's like our hands are on our hearts and we're crying.
Mm,
I don't know. That's the beauty of it, is not knowing and surrendering to what's there, what's going to happen.
beautiful. Can you tell me more about, I think you're doing a really beautiful job of giving us an idea of what the experience feels like and what we might be able to enjoy when we're there. But also tell me how this is your medicine. If it's yours to give, how is it healing you?
It is, oh, it helps me drop into my own feminine energy, realize how much in I can be in my mind. So all the practices we do, chanting, breath work, it helps me drop into my own body, out of the thinking mind, and then realize that when we quiet everything, these messages come through. Community and sisterhood is, it's medicine for me that I can't explain. I have so many good friends. I have amazing family, but sitting in circle, I've never felt so connected, and I don't want to say the word loved because I have a very loving family, but the connection between sometimes perfect strangers, when you can literally share stories and you just want to like hold that person, like, or I can't even explain it. Yeah, it's my medicine. It's my sisterhood. Every month I look forward to Circle, because I looked up something the other day, and I'm like, am I an introvert or an extrovert? And I've never really known or identified with either. And I'm actually a mix. And I think there's a term for it. Forget what it's called, but I can definitely hermit myself. I
Mm.
love to be alone. I love to be in nature. My background is wildlife biology, so I am totally fine being on my own. And so I often find I won't put myself in those situations for real connection enough. So Circle helps me always come back to that connection piece, where you hear yourself, you all of a sudden, like I might get to Circle and honestly have no idea how I'm doing.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and the bowl comes to me and it's my turn to talk. And it's like, oh, that's how I'm doing. I had no idea. So
There is some like what you've just said, our voice has power. And when we create situations where our voice has um, a platform, a listening ear, is heard and acknowledged, even just like you said, to ourselves. So explain the evolution of your voice.
yeah, oh my gosh, I was a really shy kid. I was bullied. I'm a very kind of timid energy. And throughout my childhood, the few times I tried to use my voice, it kind of burned me. I remember one time I was being bullied, and and the kid actually punched me in the face when I tried to stand up for myself. And so I think certain things happened along the way where I'm like, I'm just not gonna, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. And I just, the more, like, as I've stepped into yoga, and even when I came to be a young adult, I had a really hard time voicing my opinions. As a peacemaker, I am petrified, and still am. I'm petrified of conflict and confrontation. Even when two people near me are having like a heated debate, I'm like, oh, you can just see me like disappearing into the shadows. So this has given my voice room to breathe, but not in a scary way. I get to share love and peace and use my voice. I never thought I'd be a yoga teacher, talking and moving and showing postures all at the same time in front. I never imagined that. And so that's yoga pushed me out of that, past my comfort zone into this, oh, I'm using my voice. I still have a long ways to go, but yeah, once you become a facilitator or a teacher, you kind of have no choice. There's no going back.
Right. So when you're in these um, facilitator positions, how would you describe what you're offering? Like, is it something where, like, you sort of talked about creating themes and going in like that? Is it really kind of from a very intellectual, research-based place? Is it downloaded to you? Like, talk about your process a little bit.
Yeah, for both my yoga classes and my circles, I would say 90% of the time it's intuitive.
Mm.
Uh, I just find the more premeditated it is, the less it hits home because these are such energetic offerings. With my yoga classes, obviously, I love to make sure I have a sequence in mind or like a certain muscle group, maybe, or maybe we're focusing on back bends or hips today or whatever. And I love to, like, I'm a nerd, and Jason Crandall's my one of my ultimate favorites. So I will watch his, I would even just watch some of his yoga classes, listen to him and how he's teaching, but then I make it my own. I We do so much intuitive movement in my classes so that people can feel their bodies and feel what works for them. And as a yoga teacher, that I find just so important because our bodies are all so different and our energetic needs from day to day are so different. So if I was to just come out firing and be like, okay, we're doing a um like a hard fast hip opening sequence or something, like someone's going to get hurt, I'm going to hurt myself. So I kind of do a bit of both. For circle, it's it's downloaded for sure. It seems to drop in every time the universe sends me, this is what you're going to do. And it's amazing. I remember at the beginning, I used to definitely like plan it out, and now I kind of use a bit of both. So that, I mean, and that speaks to the feminine energy. The feminine energy cannot be premeditated. It can't be really planned as much and as structured. And I think that's why I'm in this role, because I am better in that feminine energy than in the masculine for sure. And it's so interesting because I'm a biologist. I have a degree in wildlife biology, which is, it's a science. It's very, very analytical. I still have that part of me, but I would say the feminine definitely tends to win.
I'm really curious about that idea of listening to your intuition, because it is something that yoga uh, helps us develop the ability to listen to our intuition. But when you talked about in your early 20s, you said I was completely unaware of myself. And I mean, when you describe that, I picture someone who's like, no, they have no connection to that idea of intuition. And so, how do you grow trust? How do you grow enough trust to allow, I don't know, it's like this leap into trusting something that you cannot see, trusting something that can't be proven, trusting something that's probably the least scientific thing in the whole world. And now all of a sudden, this wildlife biologist girl who was unaware of herself is talking about, oh, I just downloaded. I just trust my intuition. I let intuition lead. The feminine energy side is coming alive. And so tell me about fostering that. I don't know. I know I'm asking impossible questions to answer, but they're ones I ask myself.
No, that is a great question, especially because I'm excited to see other people go on the same journey, and
Yeah.
and maybe people that are in that analytical space more often. It takes time. And so, and a good example for me would be oracle cards. I, when I first started leading Circle, first of all, yoga is like a gateway, and then Circle became this other gateway into oracle cards, crystal energy, all these different things that I really had not a lot of experience with. And I started to realize how much the cards resonated with so many people, and I really didn't have a lot of experience. So the when I first started pulling cards, I in my head I'm like, this cannot be like this cannot work. Like it's these cards and you're just how do you just pick one? Like, and how could that be the right one? I could just pick any, and all these cards have these like cryptic messages, and as if until you pull the same card in like 8 consecutive circles. It's like, okay, I hear you, I hear you, and I remember the first 2 or 3 times saying, what a coincidence. That's crazy. And I just say things like, that's so crazy. Wow. And now I don't even say that anymore. I'm just like, yeah, there it is. So it just takes time to develop that trust. Um, and the other thing I would say is that if you are skeptical about any of these energetic practices at all, it's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. When you go all in, and I think that's one of my strengths is, and could be one of my downfalls, is that I'm a very persuasive, or what's the word? I go all in pretty easy. I believe really easily. Um, so I just tend to go all in with what I'm doing. And yeah, I think that's why so many different things resonate with different people. You just have to find what resonates with you and go all in.
Mm,
Universe is it's there to give us those messages. It's we just have to quiet our minds, and then when we get the message, it's a skill in being able to realize that that's a message coming through versus just a random thing that I'm not associating with anything.
yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. Can you tell me, as you have developed this capacity to be connected to your intuition and allowing it to guide things, like allowing your intuition to be the facilitator of yoga classes and circles. Can you tell me about your mental health and your physical health as opposed to the version where you are unaware of yourself? Is there a relationship in your overall well-being and health?
Yeah. In terms of my physical health, I have never felt better in the last, like, since obviously my early 20s, I guess. We as we age, and especially after we have kids, for me everything hurt. And I just remember being in that chronic, like, oh my gosh, this hurts, that hurts. And so the physical side of the practice, I can use it to self-medicate. Like I used to go to the chiropractor and to active release therapy and all the things a lot. And now I barely use my benefits. Like yoga, if I start to feel something, I'm like, oh, I got to go work on that. And the big thing for me in my yoga practice that has made the difference, I would attribute to Jason Crandall and it's that balance between mobility and strength. And combining those has been magic for me. I'm a really thin, lean person. So when you go all in yoga, you have to be really mindful to have that strength piece as well. And then in terms of my mental health, just being able to notice my tendencies has been mind blowing. Like notice and stop myself before I go farther down with, you know, whatever it is. Oh, I'm giving the silent treatment to my husband, or I'm gonna rage on my kids right now because mom's really mad, or whatever. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like I'm so far from it. And some days I'm better than others. That's other days, but it just helps. I feel like life is more flow. Life is just more easeful now. And I remember before yoga, it always felt very up and down, riding a high and then really low, or I'm a very emotional person. So I feel like it's just more even now. Like
Mm.
the highs are maybe just, and the low, it's just kind of more easeful. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
meditation practice, like, I don't know, even if you just did 5 minutes a day, every day, it changes the brain. And there's science proving that meditation changes our brains.
Yeah. So you're a bit of a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, um, I think the way you described easeful, the way it sounded very spacious. And when yoga invites us to be the witness, right? To witness our own lives as if we were like the spectator watching. And the way you're describing it, it almost sounds like you can create more space between the default like reaction to something to being able to curate and notice that you have a choice in your response.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about choice? Can you talk about how, I don't know if yoga is a choice, if yoga gives you choice?
Yeah. I mean, it gives you choice. It gives you control. We always have a choice which way we're going to go. And the days where, I don't make it to my mat or I don't do a meditation practice, I can find myself making not great choices, even in terms of food and how I'm interacting with my body. It's crazy. For me, yoga, it's not really a choice because if I don't do it, I know the outcome. And my family knows the outcome. Um, it I know obviously it's a choice, but it's also a beautiful thing because we might go through ebbs and flows with our yoga practice. And it's something we can always come back to, though. It's always there and it has no judgment of us. Yeah.
That sentence you just said, I know the out, like if I don't practice, I know the outcome. And then you added, and my family knows the outcome. So there's a suggestion there that this practice brings a better version of you to, those where that you are in the closest relationship with.
Yes. Yeah. And and I think it doesn't have to be coming to the mat. It can be a meditative walk. For me, time in nature is huge. It's so important. So being able to take yoga off the mat as well, although having it on the mat is for my body, it's that. And so yoga it's defined, as you would know, as like mind, body, soul. It's
Mhm.
those three things that come together. And that's the magic of yoga. That's why I resonate so much with yoga. I love sports. Like I grew up playing sports and I still love sports, but I've never felt that interaction before in my life, where you're being in your body physically, and then you can get out of the thinking mind, and then suddenly you can literally feel what it feels like to feel your soul.
Mm.
It's amazing. You know, it's those yoga classes where all of a sudden you're in shavasana and there's like tears streaming down. It's like you can't explain that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Kelly, can you tell us where to find you if we want to interact with you on the mat as a yoga teacher, or if we want to sit in circle with you? Can you share that with us?
Yeah.
Where?
So this year, one of my goals was to get a website, even if it was just literally that's just like just get it up there. And so I did it. I gave myself that gift. So it's my business name is yogawild.ca. Well, I
Oh,
guess my business name is Yoga Wild and it's yogawild.ca and my offerings are there. Yeah. And they're also on event. My circles are on Eventbrite and I offer two a month. The first or the second Friday of the month is in Bragg Creek at Yoga Spirit. And the third Friday of the month is at the Yurt, just outside of Cochrane.
oh, lovely. I love that. Yeah, it's funny this world how there's still the little tech side. There's the little tech side where you have to get your science brain back out again and your linear thinking brain and do some process stuff.
Yeah, that's not my strength for sure. Oh, it's amazing I made it as far as I did in the science world. It's still in there though, but I feel
Yeah.
like I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I also would love to put a shout out to Bragg Creek Environmental Coalition. This is a group that I'm volunteering with out here in Bragg Creek. And we're doing a lot of research for birds and wildlife and ecosystems out here. And so check it out. They have a website as well where we're trying hard to combat, multi-land use decisions on our landscape. And we're seeing like huge declines in bird numbers globally. So this is also a huge part of my heart and where a lot of my energy is going these days. So yeah, if you want to be a part of Bird Club, we have an amazing monthly bird meetup and it's
Can you
awesome.
make sure that I have all those details and I'll put them in the show notes so that anyone who wants to have connection to that can easily find it in the details below the podcast?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Any last thoughts and words of wisdom for us, Kelly?
Oh, there was this one idea that I had the other day what around yoga, which was we don't always have to love it. And I sometimes like it's just like putting oil in the car or eating good food. Like it's just a dedication and in the end the outcome is incredible. I don't always love going to my mat. Some days I'm sore and I don't feel like it. Some like I've heard there's so many stigmas around yoga that it's just stretching or anyway, it's so much more. And that was what blew me away with my first yoga teacher training was these. Wait, what? Asana is only one of the eight limbs of yoga.
Great. Yeah. I like that. I mean, you don't have to love it because I do think this idea of it, this is a practice. And I think we all, when our noticing gets really good and we notice ourselves like yelling at our kids or behaving in a way that isn't how we want to show up in the world, that's when we notice our practice needs to sort of crank up a little bit. And that might be the exact moment where we don't want to go to our mat or we don't want to be in practice. But all the messages that our body's sending to us is that we need the decompression, we need the connection back to self, we need the self-regulation. And so, yeah, I think we do get if we don't listen to the nudge back to the mat, then usually we get ass kicked there.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because it's those times in life exactly when we don't feel like going to the mat that we really need to. I
Yeah.
find my yoga practice is usually the most consistent when things are good in my life and it's easeful to come to the mat. But when stuff is hard, that's when yoga is like, okay.
I think alchemy will always be able to tell, probably from my attendance in classes, when I'm not doing well, because I have to kind of force myself to sign up and go to someone else's class so that I have a structure to practice because I'm not in a place for whatever reason where I can sit on my mat and be trusted to do it myself. Yeah, that ebb and flow is real. Yeah. That's
And for
called
me,
purpose, isn't
I'm
it?
sorry, I practice mostly at home and
Mhm.
maybe studio classes don't work for everybody, but there's so many amazing online yoga platforms. So like Yoga Glow is the one that I use a lot. Yeah, like if you can't get to a group class or if it's not your jam, try online yoga or YouTube. Like
Yeah.
Adrienne Mishler was my first introduction into like online yoga and she's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing is that it's so available now. We can find it everywhere. Yeah.
Mhm.
Lovely, Kelly. Thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate you. And it has been just lovely watching you um, unfurl, develop, grow, and become everything. I think I've just been in your life for probably 6 or 7 years, and it's been beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on this podcast. And you have been I would say my one of my main mentors. So thanks for helping me get out of my little shy self.
The ripple effect. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Lovely. All right. Thanks, my dear. We will talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.